Well, hello there, and welcome to day number 12 of the 25-day Wife Life Live experience. I am so grateful, for this Tuesday, and I hope that everyone is, staying dry. I hope that everyone is staying safe, and I certainly continue to send my condolences and my prayers and my heart to everyone who's been affected, by the hurricane. I know that there's so much going on in Georgia and Florida and all these, in Texas and all these different places. But, I really just wanted to say that my heart and prayers go out to the families and to everyone who is, who is affected, by that. Okay. So, again, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for always being supportive and always, being consistent and, continuing to, just be with me throughout this journey. I could not be sitting here if it was not for, the support and the love that I continue to receive on a daily basis. So I'm very excited about that. If this is your first time joining the 25-day Wife Life Live experience, this experience started 12 days ago, and this experience is designed specifically for millennial women and wives for me to share some of my personal experiences that will, I hope that will, mirror your own. And, this is really, an opportunity for you to, have a little bit more of a boost to peel back your layers one day at a time when it comes to transparent, raw, and authentic conversations and topics. As I have shared on yesterday, one of the reasons why I want to continue this and one of the reasons why I do this is because I want millennial wives and women to know that you are not alone and that everyone is experiencing somewhat of the same thing, right? So let's jump right on into it. Again, today is day number 12 of the 25-day Wife Life Live experience, and I am so grateful to be talking about this topic today. So today's topic is, babe, you left the toilet seat up again, right? So how many of us can truly say that, you have said this to your spouse, right? I probably don't have enough hands and toes, to, talk about some of the things that we ask our spouse, on a daily basis, right? So tonight I really wanted to talk about pet peeves, right? Tonight I wanted to talk about pet peeves and what that looks like in marriage, right? So, when I was looking up the word pet peeves and I was trying to do some research and really trying to, prep myself for today. When we look up the word pet peeve, right, the first thing that jumped out to this definition for me was the word annoying, right? So a pet peeve is something that, someone does to annoy you, right? So when we look at our marriage, and I can, when you close your eyes and you're like, gosh, we could probably name 50,000 things, right, that our spouse does that is ultimately a pet peeve, right? So tonight, before I get into, some of my tips, the 3 tips I have for you tonight, I really want to ask you and really empower you to really try to peel back your layers and say, what are the things that my husband does that is a pet peeve for me, right? So a lot of times in marriage, we marry the person who is completely opposite from us, right? We do have some common goals. We do have some similarities. We do have some positive traits. We do have a lot of things that are together, but there are also some things that our spouse may do or can do or will do that are pet peeves, right? Pet peeves. So if you are just joining, welcome. Tonight is day number 12 of the 25-day Wife Life Live experience. And the topic for tonight is, babe, you left the toilet seat up again. Tonight, I'm talking about pet peeves and how we can work through those. So, just to jump right on in, tonight I'm going to leave you with 3 tips. So if you're taking notes, get your notes out. If you are, watching by phone, try to plug in some notes here and there. And so we are going to get ready to go. Okay. So the 3 different areas and the 3 different common pet peeves that I want to talk about tonight, right? The first one is the toilet seat, right? The toilet seat. How many of us have had this problem, right? How many of us have had this problem, right? Leaving the toilet seat up. Babe, you left the toilet seat up again, right? And we're always like, babe, how many times do I have to tell you? Like, it's not that hard. It's not rocket science. It's not geometry. Just put it down, right? How many of us have done that? And so, one of the ways that we can begin to, really kind of challenge that and attack that is really kind of with our communication and establishing some different ways in how we approach that, right? So, and I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but, one of the things that, a strategy that, we didn't implement, but one of the strategies that, I learned very young in marriage was called the elephant in the room. Right? If you've ever heard of this technique and this strategy, this is actually a particular strategy that you can use a stuffed animal, or you can use, anything, but pretty much you can use an elephant, right? So what happens is that, you place the stuffed animal or you place the elephant in the area in which that there's an issue, right? So let's say you go in the bathroom and the toilet seat is up, right? Then when your husband comes home and he uses the bathroom, he'll see the elephant and he's like, oh snap, right? So that's already an established thing that you guys have. So if you're not really into all of that and that's just like, cheesy for you, it's just so simple, right? In communicating with our spouse, babe, I hope you had a great day. I'm so glad that, you're here with me today. But I really kind of want to talk about, this whole toilet seat thing, right? And then after a while, when you find yourself not talking about it that much, when you find yourself not stressing about it that much, right? Eventually it goes away, right? Or it decreases. What I want you to understand that it's really not that serious, right? It's really not that serious. And so, a part of, who I am is empowering millennial wives and women to peel back their layers, right? So when your husband has the toilet seat up, right? If your husband has the toilet seat up, I want you to really peel back your layers and say, okay, why does this irritate me? Why is it that deep? Why is it that serious? Why am I upset, right? What is going on, with that, right? I know some people will probably have different issues or, different things, but I figured, point number 1, was something that probably we all have experienced, right? Whether that's now, whether it's later, or whether, you've already been there and done that, right? So before I go into point number 2 and 3, I know a lot of you are on. I just want to say a hello and a welcome. I hope that, you guys are able to come on in and join in, comment, ask questions, provide any feedback that you may have. Okay. All right. So point number 2, the trash. The trash. So point number 1, if you're just joining, was the toilet. Now we are moving into the trash. Oh my God, right? Oh my goodness. So, if you're anything like me, when my husband and I first got married, I'm not touching trash, right? I'm just not doing it. Like I'm just not touching trash, right? I'm just not doing it. And I know some of us have our different, ways of viewing that. But, for me, I was just kind of like, a damsel in distress, right? Can you take out the trash for me, right? And so one of the things that I really learned about, my husband really taking the responsibility of taking out the trash really goes back to household chores and how you guys manage your household as individuals. Right? So I know that dynamic looks so different for different people. So, in my household, I tell people all the time, my husband and I are a team. If I wash dishes, you're drying them. If I cook, you clean. If I'm washing clothes, you help me fold. And so there, for us, there's not really that many gender roles or gender specific things that we do. Of course, there are things that, I'm better at, than he is, and he's better at than I am. For example, I'm a little bit better at folding, than he is. And of course, he's a little bit better, mowing the grass or doing something like that than I am, right? So when it comes to the trash, right, this all goes back to establishing household expectations. So we don't want to use the word chores. We don't want to use the word duties, right? Because then it just sounds like a task. We want to communicate with our husband household expectations. So when you are, talking with your spouse and you're talking to your husband, you're processing your day, instead of you coming home and saying, why is this trash stinking? Or, why is this trash, not being taken out? Or, whatever the case may be, honey, some of the expectations that we talked about, right? Or even posting some of your expectations on the refrigerator. The refrigerator is a very, very common area in the home. And so, if you and your husband need to sit down and establish what your household expectations are, case in point, when my husband and I first got married and we were learning ourselves, we had kind of like this, it was called a flip-flop method to washing the dishes, right? Both of us hated washing the dishes. And so we will always argue about the dishes, right? So we came up with the flip-flop method. And so what that meant is, if I wash dishes on Monday, you wash dishes on Tuesday. I wash on Wednesday, you wash on Thursday, and so forth and go on, right? So that's what worked for us. Then after a while, once we got into the habit of that, then it became less of an issue, right? It became less of an issue, and we were able to just do it, as we went, right? Or as we just casually, right? So I really want to empower you when it comes to point number 2, to really establish your household expectations. What is my role in this marriage to the home? What is your husband's role in the marriage to upkeep the home, right? Different things work for different people, but you have to set the expectations for both, right? Many always assume that, the expectation is always on the wife, but that looks different in different households, right? So going on to point number 3. So, the first pet peeve we talked about was what? The toilet. The second pet peeve we talked about was the trash. The third pet peeve we're going to talk about is what? The TV. The TV. How many of our husbands sit in front of the TV on Saturdays and don't move, right? When my husband and I first got married, we definitely, we really argued a lot about the TV, right? We, intentionally only bought one TV for the house because, we didn't want, our TVs to be a reason why we didn't communicate on a daily basis, but this is a whole nother conversation, right? But, our TV, I know that my husband likes sports, right? My husband loves college football. Now he is, on the TV like white on rice, right? And so what I had to understand and what I had to learn is that, my husband's love for TV is not going anywhere. But what is a concern for me is when we can't communicate because you're watching TV, right? And so, ladies, we have to understand how to communicate with our spouse when we begin to feel like there's, something else going on with the TV, right? And not just the TV, but with the other things, right? With the toilet, with the trash, and with the TV, right? So, Ms. Belt, sometimes I find out the tone of our voice of what we want done will cause a problem. Yes, this is key, right? If I had a, guide to how to have a successful marriage, I would probably put this as number 1. Yes, our tone. There is a big difference in me saying, babe, you left the toilet seat up again, versus, you left the toilet seat up again, right? Look at those differences, right? And men are physical creatures, right? So when they hear that, they hear it differently. So if I'm saying, babe, you left the toilet seat up again, he's going to respond totally different than if I say, babe, you left the, right? It's totally different, right? So yes, Mama Belt, we have to understand that how we talk to our husband and how we ultimately share what's on our heart, it varies, right? And we have to be very cautious of our tone. The reality of it is our husbands are very sensitive, ladies. They are sensitive. Yes, they are sensitive. They might act like they're not sensitive. They might, front like they're not. They might have this good old masculine front. But the reality of it is, men love their wives, right? Men love their wives. And there is nothing like my, husband coming home and laying on me. And there is nothing like me, yelling at him and his feelings are hurt. So of course he's not going to say, babe, that really hurt my feelings, right? He's going to respond in a way that he might not else respond because he doesn't feel safe, right? So Victoria says, I agree. My husband shuts down and reminds me that I am not his mother when my attitude is reflected in my tone. Yes, girl. I'm going to high five you on the camera. Yes. I think you said something that was very, very important. You said, my husband reminds me that I am not his mother. Oh my gosh. Let me just say this. When my husband and I first got married, that was a pet peeve that he had, and that was something that I had to learn very early on, right? I am not my husband's mother, right? I don't want my husband to view me as his mother. I don't want to talk to him like I'm his mother. I don't want to treat him like I'm his mother, right? So what I had to learn is, I'm just going to be honest. What I had to learn is that sometimes you just gotta, it's not that serious, right? It is not that serious, but you have to peel back your layers. I'm talking to Victoria, I'm talking to everyone who's listening, and I'm talking to myself. What you have to understand is that you have to peel back your layers. Why do you feel like you have to talk to your husband that way? What is it that is so annoying that reminds you of, of whatever? Right? So for me, I can personally say that a pet peeve, and let's dissect this. A pet peeve that I have, because let's face it, sometimes we always put the blame on our husband and what our husband's not doing and what Bae did and all of this, but there's some things that they can't stand about us too, right? So one of the things that really drives me crazy, and I've just learned that this is just something that my husband is just gonna do probably until he goes on the glory, right? So my husband smacks. He smacks, right? And it tears my nerves all to pieces, as my grandmother would say, right? My skin, it goes crazy, right? But what I had to understand is that, my husband and I would really get into an argument, right? Like we would be eating and he would start smacking and I would get irritated and I would say, Jamel, you're getting on my nerves. And he's like, well, what's going on? I'm like, why are you smacking? Right? Like that's irritating me, right? And he would be like, Shannon, that's not that serious. I'm like, well, who are you talking to? Then it just goes real left, real quick. So I had to peel back my layers, right? And so one of the things that I discovered about why, it bothered me that he smacked so much was because as a child, I was, really ridiculed about how I used to eat my food and how I used to smack. Right? I was bullied as a child. And so for me, there was something about my husband smacking that triggered my childhood experience. Right? And I know that sounds very, crazy and enmeshed, but that was a part of my childhood experience that I had not healed from. And so when my husband smacked, it just sent my brain a reminder of the childhood experience that I had not healed from. right? So I want to empower you all tonight. I want to empower you to ask yourself, why are the things that my husband does, the pet peeves that I have, why do they bother me so much? Right? What is it that the things that my husband does that bothers me so much? Right? What is going on? And so, and also always remember this, and this is something that, I have had to learn, myself, and this is something that I'm still learning. The same way that God commands our husbands to love us like Christ loves the church, we have to do the same thing, right? So we can say, babe, you left the toilet seat up again. We can say, babe, you forgot to take out the trash. We can say, babe, the TV is too loud. But what you have to understand is that our husbands need grace just like we do, right? Our husbands need grace just like we do. So we have to understand that sometimes it's not that serious. And sometimes we just have to shut our mouths, right? And that's just what it is. We have to shut our mouths, right? And what you will also find is that when your husband is seeking God and your husband is really discerning the voice of God, your husband will be convicted about if he's doing something wrong, right? He'll be convicted about that, and the Lord will deal with him on his own time. But what you have to understand is, even in the car, right? Even in the car, if we're driving in the car, and this is something that I've learned, ladies, and I'm sure that you have probably experienced this. If we are in the car and, we're going somewhere, right? We're going somewhere. And I say, babe, I really think we should turn left, right? And he's like, no, I think it's to the right, Shanetta. And I'm like, nope, I know that the sign says, that the paper says, the direction says it's supposed to turn left. And he's like, no, it's supposed to turn right. And so then I'm like, okay. So then I say, okay, and I don't say anything. So then you find out that, you really are supposed to turn left. And so then he's like, she was right, right? So that even goes back to submission, right? Submission is even in the little things. And sometimes you just have to just shut your mouth, right? So Victoria says, woo, child, shutting my mouth is hard. It is hard. But again, peel back those layers. Why is shutting your mouth so hard, right? Why is it so hard? What is it about, shutting your mouth that is so hard? For me, once again, I grew up in a single parent household. I grew up, not really being shown, certain things. And so for me, I really didn't know what my place was as a woman, let alone a wife, right? Let alone a wife, a God-fearing wife, right? But I will empower you, sis. Read the word. I'm telling you, there is no other book. There is no other person. There is no other mentor. There is no other anything that can tell you how to be a wife, just like the word of God says, right? The word of God commands us to be a God-fearing wife and to love our husbands, right? To love our husbands. Right? Read the word of God, dissect the word of God, and pray. I'm telling you, pray. Let me tell you something. What I have learned in marriage in the 2 years of me being married is that nothing can fix a problem like prayer, right? Nothing can fix a problem that my husband has like prayer, right? So even in the little things, if I'm like, Lord, my husband getting on my nerves, like, Lord, he getting on my nerves so bad, right? Go to the Lord. Say, Lord, I don't know why this bothers me so much. Lord, I don't know why I have such a problem with shutting my mouth, Lord, but convict me, humble me, right? Because I can truly say that even in the midst of my husband's pet peeves and the things that get on my nerves and that are annoying to me, sometimes you have to bring it back down, right? You have to bring it back down, and you have to say, you know what? My husband came home to me. My husband makes love to me. My husband provides for me. My husband professes his love to me. My husband, protects me. My husband, he communicates with me. He loves me. My husband is, all of these things, right? And and you will discover that the very things that bother you, and the very things that are pet peeves, they become minute to the bigger picture, right? When we took our vows, when you guys took your vows, you said from death do us part, sickness and health, right? All of these things. So that means that even the pet peeves, that's a part of vows too. Right? That's a part of the vows too. Even through the pet peeves, even through the toilet seats, even through the TV, and even through the trash, right? Our husbands need grace too. And don't ever get it twisted and think that we don't do things that get on our husbands' nerves, right? Don't ever get it twisted. Our husbands may not say it the way that we say it, but believe me that there are things that we do that get on our husband's nerves, right? So, sis, I want to leave you with this for everybody who is watching. Tonight, I want you to say a specific prayer for your husband, right? One of the things that I used to do is I would write down a prayer on a piece of paper, and, I would meditate on that thing, and, I would, really ask God to help change my husband, right? I'm telling you, when you learn how to pray and intercede on your husband's behalf, you will see that man change and transform in ways like never before. I'm telling you, there are certain things that can only be changed on your knees in prayer. There are certain things, right, that can only be changed. And so I always ask God, whenever I think about my husband, I always say, Lord, allow my husband to have only eyes for me and a heart for you, right? That is a prayer that I always, tell myself whenever I think of him, if I'm at work or wherever. I'm like, Lord, allow my husband to only have eyes for me and a heart for you, right? And everything else will fall into place, right? Everything else will fall into place. Right? So again, I want to thank everybody for joining me tonight. I hope that you were blessed. I hope that I said something or did something that empowered you. We are on day 12. I can't believe I've been live for 12 days. And we are leading up to some big things coming up on September the 25th. Please mark your calendar for 9/25 at 9:25 p.m. I will be sharing some things, some good news that I have coming up, and I cannot wait to share with the world. And I am so glad that God, is, working. Oh, Victoria says this was so powerful. I am glad I was finally able to tune in. Yes, Victoria, thank you. I'm so glad that you were able to join too, girl. Keep coming, girl. Keep joining in. We're learning together. We're peeling back our layers together. So thank you so much for joining. I can't promise you what time I'll be on, throughout the days, because my work schedule and everything is so crazy, but I can guarantee you that I will be here, and I can guarantee you that it'll be on my social media. And I am also on YouTube, right? I have my own YouTube channel, so you can just type in my name there, and you can find this video as well as other segments, and you will find Wake Up Wives there as well. Okay? So, ladies, thank you so much for everything. Thank you so much for the feedback. I cannot wait to share what the Lord has placed on my heart to do. And remember, your husband needs grace too. Intercede for your husband. Pray for him. Cover him. Right? Say positive things to him. Make him feel and know. Believe in your husband. Right? Believe in the word of God. And I will surely tell you that it will never disappoint. Okay? All right. I am Shanetta J. Harrell. I am a social worker by day. I am the founder of Sisters in Christ's Kingdom, and I am your favorite online wife life resource, empowering you to peel back your layers one day at a time. I will see everyone tomorrow. Have a good night.